So I didn't intend on making this video this week, but a friend of mine recommended that I should kind of tell a story that should hopefully resonate with many people. And I think it's true, given that one of the most popular fears in the world is the fear of public speaking. And I know I'm certainly nowhere near that level of being able to do public speaking yet. I don't even have a reason to do that. The most people I've spoken to in a room is maybe 30 to 40 at most. Maybe when I was younger, or, in terms of an actual speech that's more than just 2 seconds of me saying thank you for this award or something, I've not spoken to more than like 30 people for more than a couple of minutes. But over the past couple of months and up to the past 6 months, I've had one of the biggest growth spurts in terms of my confidence and level of ability to talk in front of more than just a couple of people like my close friends or family. So in this video, I just want to briefly explain and go over a little bit about what I've been doing in the past few months and how this should potentially help you if you have fears of, especially public speaking, but fears of confidence issues, shyness, anxiety in public and social settings, to hopefully help you in these scenarios like I have been doing so to help myself. So stay tuned if you want that help. So one of the first things that I think I realized when I have actually reflected on this increase in confidence, and again, not like I'm some crazy public speaker that can talk in front of a whole concert of people, but just compared to what it was like even just a month or two ago, but especially over the past 5 to 6 months, and even the past 18 months, it's crazy exponential curve in growth there. The biggest thing I've noticed is, quite naturally, when you look back in hindsight, but simply the reps you're putting in. Because if I hadn't done, let's say, a month's worth of 20 interviews per week for my company, for cold callers, I wouldn't have done all those dozens and dozens of interviews now and have put in the reps for being nervous on the first few, and even if you do some with a little bit of a break in between, the nerves come back. But that action of putting in the reps is what has increased that confidence in that area. And there's another part of this I want to explain in just a minute that's kind of the second part of what I think, almost like the two pieces of a puzzle here for the confidence boost and, getting rid of shyness and the overall nerves you feel, and especially the physical symptoms like sweaty palms or raised heartbeat, whatever it might feel like for you. But putting in these reps is what makes the change. And typically those first few reps, and then what builds into what becomes repetitious for you, is really where the change happens. Because obviously, if you never ever talk to strangers, the first time you talk to a stranger is going to feel so nerve-wracking. The second time you do will still feel as bad, but maybe the third time and fourth time, depending on how many gaps there are in between each one. But by the 10th and 20th and 30th person you've spoken to, maybe in a day or a week or a month or even a year, each time is going to feel less and less and less, fearful and less daunting for you. And so that's really the power of putting in the reps there, and especially those first batch of reps you put in. But this leads me perfectly to the second point. It's kind of almost two pieces of a puzzle I want to mention. So part two is kind of echoing on from part one, in that it's all about putting in those reps, and it's all about seeing that consistent growth from whether it's the first one you put in all the way to the 10th, the 100th and the 1000th, depending on how many you're going to do over time, but especially in your life that will apply. And like I said also at the beginning, this applies to almost any fear, especially in this case, any fear you have for the second part, because again, when you look back in hindsight, you realize that something which might have had a massive control over you in terms of fear that just kind of ruled every aspect of those parts of your life where that came up, is now just another thing which you don't even really notice. So this is exposure therapy, as you may have heard before, which basically just means, in layman's terms, it's just simply increasing your exposure to different levels of the fear over time. So, like, for some people, again, with, let's say, a fear of heights, it might be that to begin with, you look at pictures of the fear of heights, then you start watching videos of fear of heights, or like looking down from a height. Then you start watching like 360 goggle VR videos of fear of heights. Then you maybe finally go somewhere which is 1 or 2 stories high, and you can look out of the window or look down or be at the balcony of a 1 or 2 or 3 story building. And over time, what you're doing is you're going from something which is like just literally a picture on your phone or on your computer, and in the end, in 6 months or a year's time, you're on the top of some sort of tower doing some sort of like abseiling experience. And that's exposure therapy. It's slowly increasing your exposure to the fear over time until one day you're skydiving out of a plane or something at 30,000 feet, when originally you couldn't even look at a picture of someone standing over some glass roof of a building somewhere, just a picture. And it's the exact same in this case with confidence. Like, for me, going on like one-to-one interviews with people that I'm interviewing for, cold callers at my company, or, whether it's doing like small community calls inside of the Discord community I'm part of. Sometimes there might only be 20 or 30 people in there. To a lot of people, that's still incredibly daunting, and it was to me at first. Even to this day, I feel it. I don't necessarily have the emotional reaction like I used to have, but I certainly feel the physical symptoms still of that nerve and the shyness coming up. I still feel the fear of, the lack of confidence there. I still have the sweaty palms and the raised heartbeat if I'm about to, go up and present to more than 5 or 10 people. I still get that raised heartbeat because my body just is reacting to like previous fear. And it's that first hurdle that gets me over. It's getting on that call that is the kind of the bridge, the transition to then, in a way, almost what people say, fake it till you make it. You kind of just bridge that first hurdle. In a way, I almost think that is what the kind of fake it till you make it is. Because in a sense, faking it till you're making it is just getting over that first hurdle. And I even done this a couple of years ago in some random social environments where I was scared shitless of just meeting a couple of new people. And I decided to just fake it till I make it, just go in there, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And just go high, fake confidence, let's go in. But it's that first hurdle, that first click, as soon as you're in that environment, that at least for a lot of people, that first hurdle is the biggest hurdle. For 99% of people, that first hurdle. So exposure therapy is that big thing again, regardless of the fear really. It could be for any fear, but especially in this case with confidence, being able to get over that fear just by exposing yourself to small amounts over time. Maybe it's just talking to a couple of friends, then it's a whole group of people, then it's, video calling those people, then it's meeting up in person, then it's meeting up with those people with some other people that you've never met. And then before you know it, you've gone from I couldn't talk to my friend for more than I couldn't talk to more than a few friends at once, to now I can talk to 20 people in the room without thinking about it. And that is the power of just simple exposure therapy over time. And I spoke about faking it until you're making it just a second ago. I want to briefly touch on that and how it links to exposure therapy just before the end. So let's go for that. So faking it till you're making it is an interesting one, because in a sense, that's what you're doing to start with overcoming any fear. Because faking it till you're making it is a common concept. I'm thinking about it all the time in terms of overcoming certain things, especially with confidence, even with skills and certain things in some cases, but especially with things that are fear-based like that. So I think when I look back in hindsight at trying to, see where I gain the most confidence in confidence or in another fear, is that the whole idea, I think, of faking it until you make it is simply just a label or a phrase we apply to that first hurdle, basically. Because in my opinion, the first hurdle is the hardest one. It's like in the kind of self-help, many making money online space, it's like the first $1,000 is the hardest to make, the first 10K, the first 100K is the first hardest to make, then the rest is fairly downhill from there. And I think it's the exact same with confidence, with anything where, again, after you've done it once, even though you're still a novice, you now know what it feels like. So you're no longer having to fake it because you now have the experience of this first time doing it. And so that's why faking it till you're making it, kind of almost by definition of what happens after you've faked it, is you're now no longer faking it. And this almost goes to, like, if I can remember this like in time while I'm editing this, there's a Chris Williamson quote that he mentioned in the Modern Wisdom podcast that, bravery, if you fake bravery, that is bravery, something like that. I might be paraphrasing that a lot, but that's at least my perspective on the whole idea of faking it till you're making it, because faking only comes when you don't know what it's like to have that thing that you're faking. But once you know what it's like, because you have gone over the first hurdle and you've reached the first level of what confidence feels like, you're now no longer faking it. So almost by definition, faking it till you're making it is just overcoming that first hurdle. And to anybody that is suffering with fear of confidence, shyness, or anything, that first hurdle of talking to that first stranger for the first time that you've never spoken to before, or getting on that group call, that group video call, the big group call, or whatever it might be, that's the first hurdle. And yes, it's not comfortable, but not to sound too cliche or motivational, growth isn't comfortable. Any sort of progress is mentally or physically or emotionally painful, but you're going to get that kind of like dopamine reward from doing that thing, because any progress will have a reward on it. And in this case, it's the ability to do things you weren't able to previously do before. It's the ability to have like one-to-ones with strangers, have group calls without really thinking about it, to be able to not feel physically crazy from the symptoms of all these things, to be able to just do it without thinking about it. And that's the ultimate part of all of this, especially when it comes to confidence. So before my camera dies once more, I hope this generally summarizes everything for you. I didn't quite dive into my story like I intended to at the beginning of this video, but I wanted to kind of go over kind of the main pieces of what I've been learning and looking back on as I do reflect on how I've been increasing my confidence and just generally learning how I have been overcoming nerves and anxiety and like the physical symptoms of feeling just nervous or shy about doing anything, and kind of confronting that fear of the confidence issues that we have. So nonetheless, I really hope this helps, like it's been helping me a lot. And I just wanted to share some of the things I have been learning as I have been growing in confidence too. So yeah, feel free to, share this around with anybody that might be also suffering with confidence issues or shyness or nerves or feeling introverted, fear of talking in front of the camera, fear of talking to large groups of people, fear of joining group calls, video calls, talking to strangers, whatever it might be. I'm nowhere near the end of being able to just walk up to someone in the street. I mean, I do cold calling and do group calls and one-to-one interviews and things like that myself, but I don't necessarily even have the confidence yet to like approach a stranger. Like most people don't, to be honest, unless they really have to. But again, this is the constant growth and game we're playing. So nonetheless, if you enjoyed this then leave a like if you did. If you want to share your thoughts, then leave a comment below. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. This is a very different video to the type of videos I plan on making, but I really wanted to share this nonetheless. So anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.